For more on the war in Ukraine and Russia's latest manoeuvrings, we're joined here on set by Volodymyr Yermolenko. He's the editor-in-chief of the UkraineWorld website, and he's also a philosopher and political analyst. Thank you very much for coming in to talk to us here on France 24.
Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Let's start by talking about the situation in Bakhmut. We saw some of the pictures there in that report. The Wagner mercenaries say that they've raised the flag and taken legal control. Does that actually mean anything?
Well, the Russians do not occupy cities, they're destroying cities. They destroyed Mariupol, they destroyed Bakhmut, they destroyed Mariinka, many other places. And they can claim control, but they're actually controlling ruins. And let me remind you that the battle for Bakhmut is going since July, maybe since August, so 8 months. For quite a small city, not a very big city. That also shows how Russians are advancing. They're not actually advancing in Ukraine. And of course, Ukrainian soldiers which are holding Bakhmut are incredibly brave. And also we can see that there are lots of sufferings in these places. So this is not a chess game, this is a real war.
How do you see the situation in Bakhmut developing in the days or the weeks ahead?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a military strategist. I'm a philosopher, right? So, for you to just to understand what I said already, we travel actually. I'm based in Ukraine. We travel a lot of places which are close to Bakhmut, cities like Slovyansk, cities like Kramatorsk. We talk to soldiers. We see their firmity, and despite the fact that Ukrainians are losing many people, Russians are losing far more people, but there is this firmity to resist, of course. The problem of Russians is that they cannot really get control of the remnants of the Donetsk region. And meanwhile, Ukraine is preparing counteroffensive.
One of the justifications for Vladimir Putin's invasion was to stop the expansion of NATO. This coming Tuesday, we're going to see Finland join the NATO alliance. Are we seeing a return to some kind of Cold War mentality where we see NATO on one side getting stronger and Putin being more aggressive on the other?
Well, we definitely see that Putin is reaching the opposite goals to what he tried to reach. He tried to put the brakes to the enlargement of NATO. Now he has the enlargement of NATO. He tried to tear Ukraine away from the West. Now he has the increased ties of Ukraine with the West. And if we look at this new so-called doctrine of the foreign policy that Russia adopted, we see that Russia tries to define itself increasingly as this Eurasianist state, in line with these ideologies like Dugin or somebody else. And definitely we see that Ukraine is coming more and more close to Europe and to the West, and Russia is getting away from it.
Just on that doctrine which was announced and posted on the Kremlin's website on Friday, what is the thinking behind that doctrine? Why was it released on Friday?
I don't know what is the thinking. I mean, it's so hypocritical, this doctrine, because you see that Russia is trying to protect UN Charter and international law and rights and freedoms and justice everywhere, and it is so hypocritical if you look at it. What strikes me really is that this doctrine of Eurasianism, which is compiled by neo-fascists in Russia, people like Dugin, who are clearly inspired by the Nazi and fascist thinking back in the early 20th century. Now it's put in the heart of the foreign policy doctrine.
Let's move on now to talk about the cafe bombing on Sunday evening in St. Petersburg. Nationalist figures, commentators, politicians, whoever you like, have all come out in Russia. They've pointed the finger of blame at Ukraine for this blast. From what we can tell, is there any proof that Ukraine has in any way played a role in that bombing?
I don't have any proof. And who is Mr. Tatarsky, who was killed? He's actually a criminal. He's not a journalist. He's not a blogger initially. In 2014, I think he was in prison in somewhere in eastern Ukraine. Then he joined these pro-Russian forces. Then he became a blogger. That shows also on what Russians are trying to base their propaganda machine. They're trying to base it on former criminals like Prigozhin and his Wagner group, who is, integrating former criminals into his army. So basically, if you take into account that this blast is in Prigozhin's cafe, and there are tensions between Prigozhin and the Russian army, you can probably think that this might be something between Prigozhin and the army. And by the way, you now watch this video when this Tatarsky, I think it's another video, on a video when Russia illegally annexed these Ukrainian territories back in September, he was saying, we will kill everybody, we will rob everybody, we will do what we like. This is the mentality of those people.
There's a 26-year-old girl that's now in police custody in Russia, accused of carrying out this blast in St. Petersburg. She has alleged links to the opposition critic Alexei Navalny. Might this lead to more crackdowns in Russia on him and his supporters?
Well, obviously Russians are trying now to blame two big enemies, the external enemy Ukraine and the internal enemy Navalny. So they're trying to kill, two enemies, or to damage two enemies at the same time. So this really shows that this is something internally Russian that will be used further to oppress opposition and maybe to create this image of Ukraine as terrorists or whatever else.
I want to very quickly talk about Russia now in the hot seat at the UN Security Council. They've taken control of this month-long presidency there. What can you expect to come out of this Russian presidency in New York?
Well, this is a bad joke. I think Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba clearly said that. And we should understand that, something is very wrong with the international system when Russia is an aggressor country, the country which is doing the genocide, crimes against humanity in Ukraine, is now presides the United Nations Security Council. So this is a bad joke, and I think it shows how badly we need the reform of the United Nations.
Okay, Volodymyr Yermolenko, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us here on France 24. Thank you so much.
Thank you.